And now we have Marita Murphy. Wonderful to have you, Marita. And we've got Dr. Helen Pringle, Mary Kerr, Kerry Heubel, and Bashi Kumar is one of our panel, but she's away today with flu contracted from her young children who are in preschool. But she'll be of course, engaging in the proceedings. But thanks so much for coming on. I'd like now to hand over to you, Marita Murphy.
Look, I'm really honoured to be asked to speak because fundamentally I'm totally uneducated, leaving all for formal schooling age 12. So it's taken me a long time to find my voice and to raise the issue of why I'm uneducated formally, because my mother was a very highly qualified academic, author, librarian, professional editor, and taught HSC at the age of 21. So it's confronting to look back now at my childhood rapes. I'm not going to gild the lily anymore and say that I was interfered with. I'm not going to say that I was sexually abused. I was the victim of rapes at 7. It was 9 years on Mother's Day since I verbalised aloud the first time ever what had happened to me in that week of unprotected sex, a week to 10 days, by making a police report on the 14th of May 2014. And it's led me to be the test case and challenge the statute of limitations laws in Melbourne. I had no idea that I was the test case, and 3 male judges overruled a county court woman judge who ruled that we go to trial. So as Jocelynne would know, I made a documentary. I turned individual investigator, much to the jargon of the police, who told me that I couldn't do that. And I'm like, hello, I'm a grown up. You're not going to tell me what I can and can't do. Interestingly, the Xavier College individual who at that time, I know now, was in year 8 or form 2, that I sued for rape, is a very wealthy, well-educated, entrepreneurial individual, but he didn't countersue me despite protesting the fact that he was innocent. So I'm just about to embark, or I'm forced to embark on making another documentary as a follow-up. And the politics that I've run into in child sexual abuse is just alarming and crazy, and hot on the heels of the Royal Commission into Childhood Sexual Abuse that had to be called in Australia, but was fundamentally called by a female for males. So it's pushed me into a position of unease in the fact that I wasn't active on social media by choice. I was a private person, but it's also put me in a position of strength that I'm not compromised, I'm not owned by anybody, and I can speak about this situation, which fundamentally is a women's rights issue. And having listened to Sally speaking, it's kind of interesting and encouraging that the one person or the people that have behaved in my situation with the greatest class and dignity are actually Aboriginals. And I just find it a fascinating personal journey of discovery that one of my rapists was a juvenile delinquent, ward of the state, stolen child, Aboriginal that the government couldn't control, and he became my perpetrator in a private setting. So my research shows to me that he wasn't stopped and nothing happened to them at all. Nothing happened to these boys that raped me digitally, gang rape, sexual molestation every night. And my brother tells me that they raped me with a stick, which I didn't report, but I've got no doubt was true. And I found that incredibly re-traumatizing to learn that as an adult, knowing that my beautiful mother had to carry that. And as she carried it as a child, coping with rape, I watched her have a complete nervous breakdown due to a lot of things, but probably mainly that. So I've taken on the big boys at the top end of town. The police weren't going to do anything. That was pretty obvious. They were just stringing me along. It took them a year and a half to find the Aboriginal. Me turning investigator took me approximately 10 minutes to unearth him and go and confront him. A promise that I'd always made to myself as a child, that one day I would find these people, and one day they're crimes. End of story. They're crimes. Even though they're not prosecuted, and it's pretty much the same worldwide, these are serious crimes. And I had a cutout not long ago of a heading on the ABC where 2 boys had been charged with rape, and they were 12 and 13 from the Kimberley. Now, I dare say they were Aboriginal boys, but there's going to be no repercussions at all for a Xavier College educated student. None, nothing. Not a letter of apology, not a I'm sorry as an adult, nothing. And I haven't had any responses from the authorities, which is really puzzling. There's a local man whose name is Terry Floyd. He's looking for the remains of his presumably deceased brother, probably, taken by a pedophile between Maryborough and Avoca in Victoria in 1975. And the state government gave him $100,000 to look for his remains, of which he failed, and they've just given him another 45. I think that I've proved my case. I haven't had anybody call me a liar, and I haven't been sued. I haven't been countersued, and yet my documentary actually addresses the Premier and the Attorney General, and the best response I've had to date, when Chrissy Foster told me to write to the Premier mid-2018, and I did that respectfully, registered mail, which I find administration pretty hard because I'm uneducated, and eventually I got back a generic response sending me Lifeline's number. I mean, seriously, I felt like necking myself. How is this an answer to every problem that society has, just giving them Lifeline's number? So regarding men standing up, as you can see, I have a crusade where if 1,000 good men put in $100, I'd have my money back. It's been done through the NAB Bank because the witness to my gang rape, also a Xavier College student, had defrauded them of over $1 million, put it through the pokies and gone to jail for 5 years. So his credibility as a witness is what? I rest my case. And I'm just appalled. I'm appalled at society doing the research, having my antenna up since the age of 7, gathering stories and information, constantly seeing the patterns. Last night on Netflix, I watched a story about 2 American girls who reported rape and end up being charged with making false allegations, but they were pressured, video evidence, by men to withdraw and when they withdrew told they were lying, they were then charged, and one of them went to jail. So the big picture is pretty depressing. The conviction rate's 1%. I mean, I suppose I was made an example of. Anyone looking at my situation, why would they pursue and sue their rapist if they looked at my situation? So I'd like to think if I work really hard and really loud and gather and garner support, that I might be able to be the test case that creates change, like John Ellis with suing the church when he was a victim, a survivor, and then became a lawyer in New South Wales and took on the might of the Catholic Church and was crushed by Archbishop Cardinal Pell, who said it's all lies and gossip until it's proven in court, and that's been done worldwide. Yesterday in Illinois, the Attorney General's just handed down the sexual abuse of 2,000 children by Catholic clergy. So even after Spotlight, we've still got all these cases coming forward. So my mantra is that, children as a basic human right deserve to grow up safe and sexually safe, and if they don't, look at the damage that it causes. And I mean, I'm really lucky that Mum was such a strong, principled individual that, she was able to I never had counselling or anything. The first day that I verbalised it pretty much was the first day I made my police statement. The policeman said to me, "What do you hope to achieve?" And I couldn't say it, but I thought to myself, gee, it'd be nice to talk about it without sooking. So I'm considering myself a real winner at the moment, but I'm over $100,000 out of pocket for speaking up. So I've made a claim for redress. And if that is successful, if I got the maximum 150,000, which is pretty insulting because that's all the women, but the men are getting $1 million plus payouts. If that's successful and they're investigating that right now, and I know that Eugene went on to become a multiple perpetrator rapist. I know he raped his sister-in-law. I know he raped his niece. I have people feeding me with information constantly. He's now deceased. But because he wasn't stopped with me and faced no consequences, then you naturally have other victims. He was known as a perpetrator on the streets when I met him. But to his credit, he did the right thing by me. He didn't know that I'd sued, I'm going to call him his foster brother, for rape, because I didn't at that time bring the Aboriginal into the case, because at that point he hadn't been found. And the 3 male judges who overruled a county court woman judge who ruled we go to trial, they stated that I only got raped for a week to 10 days. They also gave me $50,000 sight unseen. It's really bizarre. Where did they get that money from to give to me? And it went through the lawyers' hands and they took over 10,000. And compared to the males, if it had been 500,000, it would have been insulting. But basically, they just left me voiceless.
Well, could you send us the reference to that Supreme Court case where they overturned the county? And,
yes.
and one thing that I've been thinking about when you've been speaking, apart from your actual case itself, is the way that Rolf Harris has been reported, because there was a report saying, it was on the news, I was watching the television, and it said that his obituary and the recollections of him are all about the last 10 years when he was convicted and sentenced to imprisonment, and that's his whole story. Now, what they're actually overlooking is that his whole story is much more than that, because what was that 10 years was about? That 10 years was about those little girls years ago. It's years ago that they were sexually abused by Rolf Harris. And so that's all forgotten. All that we're looking at is the last 10 years Rolf Harris was brought to book for those crimes. They're writing the victims and survivors out of history.
Yes,
It's the most
yes.
extraordinary approach to this man and what he did. And the other point, and then we'll come advocate to my colleagues, is that the ramifications of the abuse of children go way beyond that. The individual child is the principal person who suffers and who is treated wrongly. At the same time, that's not an isolated issue. The ripple effect is huge, and there's a wonderful novel. It was turned into a film, Mystic River, which is exactly on this point. It's a boy who is taken away by some people who come to his small town in America, and he's sexually abused and then comes back to the small town. And what it shows is the whole town has been impacted by what's been done to that boy. And I'm not saying that to say, oh, poor town. I recognise that he is the victim and survivor, but it goes way beyond that little boy. And this is what we're not recognising as a society.
Well, it's like suicide with the ripple effect.
Yes, exactly.
And for my mother, I have people who are well-meaning who say, oh, if someone did that to my kid, because if you want to clear a room, talk about child sexual abuse. And it's so pathetic. I get adults saying, oh, I just don't talk about it because I can't. Well, if you can't deal hearing about it, what is it like for a child that is or was being raped? I mean, grow up, seriously. If you're not part of the solution, you're definitely part of the problem. And so they say to me, oh, if someone did that to my kid, I'd kill them. And there's an inference there that my mum didn't do enough. And I really hate that, because she protected my reputation as such. Like, I felt like a fallen woman at 7, because I'm living in this insular Catholic town where everybody's judging everybody else and everyone's going to church and who's there early and who's gone to confession. And it was the best of good things of Catholic towns, settlements, way of life. We all agree on that. But I look at them and I say, so they say, oh, if someone did that to my kid, I'd shoot them. And I look at them and I say, do you think mum should have shot the black one or the white one? Because it's not a valid option. And to put it forth as a valid option is an insult to try to live in a society with rules and not anarchy. So we need the laws to work. And if the police weren't going to do anything, my socket policeman, I've never even met him face to face, and yet it was his job to investigate my case. I travelled from Ballarat to Moorabbin on 3 occasions and never met him. Now, my case has been closed since 2017. He rings me up. Hello, what do you want? He wants to know, can we catch up for coffee? He would love to catch up and meet me face to face with coffee. What? He rang me up the other day and he said, you need to be careful. Well, what do I need to be careful about? I haven't raped anybody. I haven't robbed anyone. I haven't committed perjury. I haven't threatened anyone. This is just this narrative of, oh, you're too much or you're out of line. No, I'm not. If I'm too much, we'll go and find someone who's less. If you can't stand what I'm saying, well, you just need to grow up a bit, because this is pathetic. And I'm in Ballarat after the Royal Commission, and I've got this constant, oh, these poor boys, I get that. They're either prematurely dead or they're getting $1 million payouts, as they should. But look what happens to a girl when she stands up and she calls it out. And do you know how much support I've had? Probably 1 in 100. The things that have happened and the friendships that are broken, the family members. I went and saw the bishop the other day and I said, I need to make another documentary because the Regent want to replay You Be the Judge, and I can't see the point because it's on YouTube and I need finance. And he just said, right, how much do you want? It wasn't much, but he doesn't know me from Adam. He doesn't know me from the pews. I haven't been to mass or church since I've been here. Well, my sister-in-law cracked a darkie when she found out about it. Now she's a mother, she's a grandmother, she's an auntie of one of the survivors who went to Rome, and she said to me, quote unquote, child sexual abuse is very common. I should know. I've worked in child services for 20 years. So with an attitude like that, it's always going to be common. And that's what we're up against. And that's what we're up against after the Royal Commission. So you can imagine what it was like before. And you've got our homegrown cardinal saying it's all lies and gossip until it's been proven in court. Well, that has been done. But culturally, we haven't had a change. And to listen to the discussion about Aborigines, I'm very proud to be able to say that I started with Eugene's someone of a similar name who was a local elder. I went into his home. He's married to a white woman, very respectable. They didn't know me from bar of soap. It was probably going back 6 or so years ago, and I was looking for Eugene. I told him my story. He listened for an hour and just let me talk, and then I got anxious and thought I should go, and he said, well, I want you to tell me who it is, because no child should be treated in that manner, and I support you. And I felt vulnerable naming a name, and he said, no, just sit down, tell me. And I said, well, I think it might be a relative of yours, and I told him, and he swore. And they have been behind me quietly, not publicly, because he said in our culture, if he did that, he would have got a spear through his leg. There was ramifications for raping children in their culture.
Yeah.
But in our culture, oh, you can't put your money where your mouth is and come into our courts and hold this person that's A, raped you and now B, lying to account. I could have gone to court and been heard and lost due to the passage of time, but I would have been heard. And I don't think it would have gone to court. I think if those 3 male judges had ruled in my favour, there would have been a court doorstop. So in some ways I can say I was disadvantaged, but in other ways I say, no, this is so bad that it's good. But I know you should assume nothing. I assumed that society would have been more forthright with their support of me. I'm invisible.
What about Kerry or Helen or Mary? Do you have any comment or question?
I have nothing to add to what you say. I believe every word you've said.
Thank you. Why would you leave school at 12? Like, we're not in the 1920s. We were in the 1970s. Who leaves school at 12? So I went into the sport of kings because what are you going to do with no education? And they're ignoring me pretty much. I've had 4 men privately support me, but they're not doing it publicly. I need them to do it publicly. And in the last little bit, they've had 2 tragedies in racing, and they're both men called Dean. And racing did GoFundMes, and quickly, within a week or 2 weeks, raked in $2 million. I'm only fighting for my own money back. I'm not asking for charity. And the Premier hasn't acknowledged me at all. It's quite obvious a gross miscarriage of justice.
Helen or Mary?
Hi, Marita. Obviously, it is quite isolating. Are there any other people that have, since you've started your campaign, have there been other women that have approached you and told you their stories as well, or is it still
hundreds and hundreds and hundreds? I advocate on the streets every day, and I would say every second woman's got a story. They're crimes. They're not, you're just crossing over into criminal behaviour, and we keep these nice little words like interfered with, or, the dirty uncle. It's
something
everywhere.
happened. Something happened in the woodshed. Helen.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good. Okay. Well, it's been wonderful to have you, Marita, and to actually see you sort of in person rather than just our communications on Facebook. So we very much appreciate your coming and speaking. And I want to make a personal comment. I love your background. It's really it's truly stunning. The rack with the clothes, it just looks wonderful. Yeah.
So the main man I need to thank for supporting me was the president of the AMA Association, who gave me, I call it my Brownlow. In a pandemic, I got the President's Award, and the year before, in 2001, it had been shared by 10 professors and doctors like Kerry Chant and Jeanette Young and Brett Sutton and Professor Brendan Murphy. So to be recognised, because we know if the legal system doesn't work, that the medical system gets flooded with trauma, and that was the case before the pandemic. I just think regarding trigger warnings, counselling and therapy, that if victims got justice, all these other things wouldn't have the magnitude of importance that they have. But I'm a bit of a lone voice in that area, and I'm not really liked. I have had a clashing of horns with Kaza here in Ballarat, who jerked me around and to the point where I was so distressed, and I thought they'd love what I was doing and they'd love what I'd done and they'd want to know about the statute of limitations. In actual fact, they may not realise it, but victims are their bread and butter, so they go and they apply for funding and they need the victims. And it's quite horrific when you unpick it that they don't like someone like me, because I'm going to impact on their business by saying, oh, skip all that, I want justice, just like the boys.
But I did want to say, finally, your point about triggering is absolutely so perceptive, because you're 100% right. We have all these messages saying, and we've got to say before a lecture, oh, this may be triggering. But you're absolutely right. Yes, if it was recognised that what has happened is a crime and that it's taken seriously, then you don't need to have a trigger warning.
And
Really?
just to be so insulted, I had somebody who was helping from my hometown. We actually had a pedophile who was a young man, and he contacted me when he saw what I was doing, and he said, "Can you help?" And I said, "Yes, I can help," because I knew this person had had 70 odd victims in his lifetime. So he went to court in Dandenong again in the pandemic. So my friend didn't have to fly down from Queensland. His brother and his father were both policemen, and he hadn't ever revealed. And this perpetrator from Maryknoll pled guilty. And I said, "Would you like me to ask the football club at Narnagoon for an apology for you?" "Oh," he said, "I'd love that." He said, "I just want to know it's never going to happen to any other kids." He said his father had been the president and his own father had been telling him just to get over it. Well, they weren't forthcoming. They wouldn't answer my emails, etc., etc. And some of them know me personally from Maryknoll. So he rang a law firm the other day and he contacted me to say, "Oh, I contacted a law firm." And I said, "Would you send the club a letter requesting they might listen to a law firm as opposed to me?" And straight away, the lawyers said, "Oh, no, we'll do litigation, loss of earnings, etc., etc., etc." But none of that can or will be applied to me. I am struggling just to get my own money back for speaking out. It is just, look, I'm happy for him and I'm happy for that, and the lawyers jumped on it straight away. But as a woman trying to get a voice, I'm invisible.
Thank you so much for sharing your voice with us. It's really important and we've really been assisted in all sorts of ways. So appreciated very much. So
and hopefully everybody here will watch You Be the Judge, the Marita Murphy story, and share it, and that, because that eventually will, it's had nearly 20,000 views and there's another one coming. So we'll keep the pressure up, but I really am only just one person.
Lovely. Oh, well, not lovely. I understand what you
I get tired.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Much
Can I sit and listen to Karen?
Of course. Yes, please. Yeah, do. Yes.
Thank you.
Good. We'll just take a short break. So we'll have a very short adjournment and then we'll come back to Karen Baczynski-Lee. Thank you.